with my book.
Well, my question was, why do people want to park like that?
I do, I know.
Or they like right down
I don't have a way to cast my snowblower.
And you need to talk along with somebody we talked to about
to.
joining too.
Oh, yeah, that would be a good guy there.
I can see where you might want to in the park, you had a family or something. Right. Probably nobody would come and talk to you. Commercial.
So, okay, all right, we're gonna call the meeting to order. It is 5:30, and it is the Park Trees and Recreation Board meeting of March 5th. And, so, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll have a roll call.
Roger,
I'm here.
Mary Dell,
Here.
Beth here, Rod,
Here.
Sarah,
Not yet.
Ann Rude. Did I get everybody?
Okay.
I did.
I think you did, yep.
Okay.
And, Mike, our, staff representative, isn't gonna be here tonight. I think we all all got that message, email from him.
Yep.
When it gets to, Mike's, park projects and budget updated, I'm just gonna read what the email that he sent us, just so we read it into the record, and if there's any questions from members of the public. Okay, so let's go on to action items. Approval of the consent agenda in the minutes of February 5th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Passes. And Barb, you're just in time.
Oh, yeah?
You just walked in, you're just in time. You're up first. So we're gonna move on to discussion items, and the very first item we have under discussion items is tennis and pickleball courts.
Just like that. Okay. I have a handout. So, hi, I'm Barb Beck. I think I met most of you last time. Jeff Sheets, pickleball
Yep,
player.
Jeff.
How are you? Good. Permission to give my handout? Okay.
Thank you.
I do.
Awesome. And I know,
Okay.
yeah, great. Thank you.
Hi, you can look like you.
Mary Dell, good. Yeah.
Thanks, Barb. Okay. Hey, hi. I have two extras. So, where should I be? Sit down with you?
Anywhere,
Up,
yeah.
up close to the
Yep.
speaker so that that
Oh.
can pick you up, or any of these little satellite ones.
This moves like you.
Here. Come here and sit in this,
You can-
you can sit in this one and then you'll be right
Okay,
here.
Jump in.
Yeah.
So I think you guys know that we came a couple months ago, Jeff and I, to let you know that the pickleball courts and the tennis courts were not meeting the needs for now or in the future, according to us, and that we wanted to work on a resolution to that, making it better. So we have a group that's been meeting once a month, and Dave joined us. Roger's on there. Rod is on there. Rod is our liaison because he had Field School Park as part of his portfolio of parks. And so we've been looking at different locations, and we've been looking at co-locating pickleball and tennis if possible, or maybe not, depending on what options we might have. So I can just kind of walk you through this sheet that kind of summarizes where we are right now. So the first thing we decided we need to do is describe what's our need. So we're trying to accommodate growing pickleball, tennis that's relatively static, but could grow maybe with some visitors, and the high school tennis team, which is a huge thing. And so the high school tennis team needs 4 courts in one location to run their practices and also to host meets of any kind. And the pickleball, we decided 6 was a minimum and 8. So 4 dedicated fenced tennis courts in one location, a restroom, drinking fountains, storage, and parking for small events. And then that other one is just sort of a wish thing is if we could have one court that could be played on during a colder season. 6 to 8 fenced pickleball courts with sound and windscreens in the same location, if practicable, as the tennis courts, drinking fountains, restrooms, if not adjacent. So that's kind of our goal that we're aiming for. And then we had a number of alternatives, and on the bottom you'll see some have dropped off. Doug Brown Field, Rocky Fork, and the Eagle's Nest, where that city is gonna hopefully get some FEMA money. And then, an idea of putting pickleball courts at the high school. So those are really, non-starters, according to our group, and also according to, Fitzgerald at the school. So what's left, and these are not in any order, I just gave them letters, so, and they're not even in order. F should be E, I guess, but, just so they could be discussed, not because
E
they're,
dropped off.
huh?
E dropped
E,
off.
yeah, E went away. E is a secret.
We can make F and E.
So to kind of summarize this, the locations that we're looking at are, we talked quite a bit about, Field School Park and like taking over that whole park and putting all the courts there, 4 new tennis courts and the pickleball courts. And the existing tennis courts need to be redone completely, pretty much. There's a sinkhole under there and the surface is no longer good enough. So, we probably could fit 4 tennis courts on there plus the existing, but it would take every ounce of grass off of that thing. And we talked about impacts to the neighborhood of having pavement and not having that park available for whatever pickup activity, t-ball or whatever is used out there, just messing around, throwing a ball for a dog, whatever you see out there.
Or even, if I can interject too,
What's that?
if I can interject,
Yes,
we also
please.
talked about the impact it would have on traffic and
Yeah,
school buses if we had a turn
Right,
there too. on
right.
neighborhood.
right, and we just thought that that was probably not okay. So, the next location then, once we kind of ruled that out, and there's quite a bit of confusion about who owned the land, which is now cleared up.
Yeah.
And it's the city.
Well, there's, the school district owns a small portion because of how the road had changed and whatnot, but it's like a 6 or 9 foot
Oh.
stretch of the corner is all it is.
So it was
Not-
part of a land trade some time ago that never got consummated properly.
Well, it was actually, what we did is we leased them a big spot for the high school, for
Yeah.
$1 for 100 years, and what we're proposing is leasing them an additional spot, which is where this comes from, which is just adjacent to. But the line actually goes over the edge of the new spot already. Did that make sense?
You're not talking about Field School Park.
No, I'm sorry, I'm
Okay,
adopted.
you're
Yeah,
way
you,
ahead of
Jeff,
me.
you-
I'm adopted.
Okay.
You're ahead of us.
Okay, you're elected, but maybe you're adopted
But it doesn't
too.
matter,
It is.
because field school doesn't really work.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Kind of fallen off.
Right.
Okay.
So the next thing we looked at was, so on the north end of the airport
There's a
comes,
lot of confusion over who owned which piece of land.
yeah, everywhere. North of the airport, there's a fence that goes around, then there's the walking path, then there's the highway. On the other side of the highway, north side of the highway, is land that's not yet developed. There's a church on the corner, and then this ground next to that, and then the entrance to the golf course houses. So that is owned by someone who is unable to put her vision on the ground because of the airport regulation on height.
My understanding is she is currently working with planning and resubmitting something that doesn't have population within what's called the ASOD area
Oh,
of
okay.
that.
Okay,
But the last conversation we have, and it's hard to say how much of it was a frustration versus but that's, yeah, it's a privately owned, it may be developed, it may be something she'd be interested in selling if somebody had a checkbook and wanted to write her a check.
so that
won't be
is,
the city.
that's a suitable piece of property. Whether it would be available to us and whether we could afford it is yet to be determined, and whether it's the most desirable location. But, one thing is, the Lutheran Church next door there has indicated that they would like to work with the city on some kind of recreation activity development facility, whatever. And so we're following up with them, how much room do they have?
Between the 2 ditches.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, what do they wanna put into it, if anything? And so they're having a change in leadership from Linda Daly to somebody else that's the head of that. right now, and, so that is next to this other piece, so we don't know what the dynamic might be there. We need to see what the church's intentions are. So that could potentially be both new pickleball and new tennis courts, could be just new tennis courts with pickleball remaining down here at the existing courts. Several things to explore there. I'm not going in order, I don't think, here, but that's all right. So that was A. B.
I don't think you have
That's
the
the
room.
only we already talked about.
All right,
School
thank you.
park.
C, okay. So,
This is the one I gave the brief on already, sorry.
right, okay, so any questions? No, I'm kidding. So anyway, this piece sits, and I understand it's part of the lease for the school.
9 feet of it is.
Oh, okay.
So it's only 9 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where it sits is, if you're familiar where the softball diamonds are, well, you already know. It's to the
Trees
south
and
of the ball
Okay.
diamond,
Bunch of trees went in there.
and it's before the parking area for the ball diamonds and the wildlife sanctuary on the left side. So it looks to be big enough, and it looks like perhaps there are not environmental issues there, although we've not done any investigation on that, and we'd have to see. But because it's already publicly owned, it could be available so the project could be accomplished with less funding than having to purchase a piece of property. So,
So environmental, are you talking about coal?
anything.
Oh, well, with you
Drainage,
putting,
utilities,
yeah,
coal,
but with you putting a surface down,
yeah,
yeah. So that's that terraced piece of property. It's kind of,
so it would need a lot of earthwork.
Is it really?
or,
terraced?
there's a lower section and
Yeah.
a higher section, yeah.
There's a lower
east and west.
section down by
Lower's
the
west
street.
is, and the east section is higher.
Yeah,
So I mean, for courts, it might not be a problem,
Actually, some courts
have
are
some
actually,
up and down anyway,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, there'd be some grading, but you're gonna have grading in any,
right,
in any kind of green
right, yeah.
construction.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that one.
And we have, the Public Works Director's gone up and looked at it for like drainage stuff, so that's not an engineer, but we have done some cursory look.
Oh,
at that.
okay.
There was also a little bit of a conversation that came up about whether they wanted to use that for housing and stuff instead, and it turns out it is part of the dedicated park area, so that's not an option. There's about 2 or 3 things that make that not an option. So if you were part of any of the threads where that got hijacked and was gonna maybe be housing instead of tennis
Okay.
courts, it's not an option. So
Okay,
it's not an either or between those two.
okay, all right, thanks for that information. The other, sort of deviation is we would separate pickleball courts from tennis courts, wherever they would end up, and put the pickleball courts in, Depot/Lions Park. And we don't know that there's any appetite for that. We were just looking at alternatives, so I don't know which one of you has Depot Park as part of your,
That was Madeline, and she's now no longer on the board. We
Oh.
haven't reassigned
okay,
that.
okay. Well,
I think that would certainly be a conversation that would still need to happen with, ICE.
yeah,
Just trying to picture where they would,
The other thing that kind of relates that to the
Rink,
Lion
right.
Park is Red Lodge did get awarded a $2.5 million
Yeah.
grant. And part of that was, a hard surface at Lions Park to put a base down there, but that would be a hard surface, it would have the rink on that. So I don't know that those two uses would be compatible.
so pickleball wouldn't.
I don't know,
Right,
I just
right.
know that that's one of those.
Who, can you guys recommend who we should talk to just see if that's even a possibility? I mean,
What's his name, Andy?
Andy
or
Simpson,
Tom Hughes.
Andy
Yeah.
Simpson is,
OC Hockey?
yeah, I can get you his number.
Al Bloomer's part of that too.
Yeah.
Not really, no.
Okay, well, and
It's
Lindsay
Andy,
has a
has
connection, too.
a group in ICE that, Al certainly supports ICE.
So
but-
that grant money is already allocated out to projects?
No, it's just,
Okay.
that's just what they're talking about.
Oh, okay, they would be someone interested in that grant money as well, yeah, okay. Yeah, so if they put down a hard surface, that would take up more of the park space,
Part of their
for sure.
story behind that is it'll increase tourism during
Oh,
the
yeah,
slower
sure.
winter months. So.
Right, right, I totally get it, yeah.
Weren't they looking at a refrigeration system too?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll do some coordinating with them, yeah.
I'll get,
And then I guess if you guys assign someone else to oversee that coordination with that park, please
Okay.
let us know that, so we can work with that person. And then this is one that the mayor threw out
I'm
there.
sorry, but, excuse me, did Madeline say she was interested in still, sort of being ambassador for that park? I can't remember. Seems like maybe
Did you?
vaguely. I'll check with her.
Yeah.
Ann, is that in your,
Ward?
yeah,
No, but
No.
it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters.
right, no, I was just wondering if it was, and if you had an opinion about it, but,
All I know is that Tom Coons was here last week talking about, ice rink, pickleball, you know,
oh, he,
tandem thing.
oh, he
Okay.
did? Oh,
Well, I'll
okay,
get you Tom
Wasn't he
Cruise's
at City
number.
Council?
huh?
Was you talking about?
Am I reading that?
Just so you know, that does happen in this job.
I don't recall that he talked about,
Yeah, you might start- you might-
I go to so many meetings, I'm sorry, I get them mixed up.
yeah.
No, but Tom is very involved in,
I'm
And
though.
the ice rink,
But
yes.
yes,
And that's Tom Coley that's up there though.
Oh,
I know, but
whoa.
he did say that there was this dream of the ice rink, like November first to April first, and then bring in and make it prepared for pickleball.
Oh, on top of that,
But he's also talked about farmer's market, and so it's kind of driven by ICE, and then what is a co-use that can
So-
get the most out of
So
it.
what does your parks plan or your growth policy say about that particular park? Does it say anything specific? that would-
I'd have to
Guide
look
us?
it up.
Huh?
We'd have to research that, the park
It'll be-
comprehensive plan.
It'll
Yeah.
be, it's in the process of being worked right now, and will be online in about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow,
This
okay,
board could get in and make that, as that goes to public comment.
okay. That's opportune. Okay. So the only other thing that's still sort of on the list here is, you made a suggestion about inside the airport.
Yeah, that's not an incompatible use.
So on the north end of the airport, but on this side of Highway 78. And as your public works guy, has he looked at that at all? do you think?
He has not.
Yeah. So what should we do to see if that's a possibility?
I think that's more of a conversation we could take up with Brian and the airport board, is who we'd have that conversation with.
Okay,
And, I will offer that after we identified that spot, by the way, for those who weren't tracking it, I did pull it up,
oh, great.
up by the high school.
Oh, thank you, yeah,
That's kind of where I think most of the energy feels like it's going, just because
yes.
it works for the high, well, let me speak to it from a city standpoint.
Can you put the arrow or the cursor on it?
I can.
Oh, okay.
Oh, not from there. And I can go out a little bit smaller so you can see kind of
Yeah.
how it fits into things.
Yeah.
But that gives it something for the high school to use for tournaments and practice, and because it's right there.
Oh,
From a city-
fabulous.
From a big city perspective, we go to council and say, hey, can we rent this piece of land for $1 for 100 years, sort of a thing? And then what we would do is we'd turn that over to the school they could then go after their funding and their maintenance, and now the city doesn't. So we get the tennis courts that are out there that the public can still use, but it's not city dollars
Well, would
going
the
to
school
it.
take it?
I think so. That was part of my understanding, is they had, that
Oh.
those funding sources there's a lot of the funding resources that were
Okay.
available to the schools more so than to municipalities.
Okay,
So the idea of leaving one tennis court and the pickleball courts at Field School is not,
yes, that is.
oh,
That would
But
be.
part of the project would be to redo those courts as well. That's part of what we're gonna raise. So the idea is we'll raise the funds.
so we still have a tennis court
One tennis
there.
court in town, two tennis courts worth of pickleball courts, would that be, how many? 5. Well, no, it's gonna all be resurfaced, so wouldn't it be an even number?
Well, if I can show you.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Or while you, to have a district tournament or a state tournament, you have to have 4 courts.
Yeah,
In high school.
And I-
Yeah.
got it.
You're,
So this is the, yeah, so this is, Jeff Sheets.
sheets, okay, thank you.
So this is
That's
the existing courts that we have right now. So right now, we have 3 tennis courts. Half of one cannot be used. This area up here is the asphalt that's in question. We have some sinkholes here, and it's not smooth enough, so this would have to be redone if we're going to use these 4 tennis courts. So the idea was that we would keep the existing tennis court. On 2 courts, you can put 3 courts here easily. We would put 2 pickleball courts here, and then we'd have this area here where the asphalt is, or the bad asphalt. We could use that for tables, chairs, things like that for people to sit. And that would also then obviate the need to redo this whole area.
We have now.
We have a kind of a sinkhole right here. That would have to be evaluated, but I think the rest of this is probably okay as far as to be able to use this, since you're not putting. But that would be evaluated.
Yeah.
Is the idea.
Is that sinkhole the dark corner up on the,
Yeah,
on the?
Yeah, you can see,
Yeah.
that's the,
that's the asphalt.
I can go up. Yeah, this is the asphalt part, and the one area that's not, it's right, basically right around here, is that's where
The hole.
it's sinking right.
Yeah,
Now, if we're gonna put the pickleball courts here, we would only have to take about this much of the asphalt and redo that part. We don't have enough room to have the 2 pickleball courts and the existing tennis court there. I did a preliminary as far as I've contacted, a company in Billings, and ballpark to do this sort of a situation is somewhere around $50,000.
would that be resurfacing the whole?
That's resurfacing
Sounds cheap.
all of this, dealing with it with this right here. That would also include the 5 nets and poles for the pickleball courts. Now, of course, if there has to be a little bit more working on this, that's gonna increase the price. But I said, just give me a ballpark figure what it might be. You know, we haven't really gone out for bids or anything, but just get an idea of what it would cost to put this configuration on existing.
Mike had on his report something about, he's already spent some time repairing that and was gonna finish next
This
year.
spring, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what they've done is on the tennis, you can see here, he replaced, these poles here are all pulling out because the nets are pulling them in and it's cracking everything. So they have redone these 2 posts, well, actually 3 of the posts there. And so I'm assuming that he's going to be doing the rest of these.
Mhm.
But maybe not if we don't use these. You don't have the tension on
The
the
net,
nets
yeah.
to pull the poles in.
Yeah,
But they have these 3 already done.
so it's also a timing issue. I mean, if we could come up with the money for that, well, that's fine, but then we have 1 tennis court, so the tennis team goes away, basically.
Well,
Or,
Holding meets.
resurfacing, I understand that, but that,
Don't go
doesn't it need to be kind of ground down a little bit more? Is that incorporated
We can't
into
even practice.
resurfacing? Because it's pretty bad over there.
No, most of it except with the asphalt part. This is what has to be, if we're going to keep this asphalt there,
Yeah,
you have to grind that,
Yeah.
match it.
But everything else, is you think is,
Oh, yeah, everything else is fine, we've had some cracks, we've been fixing cracks.
okay,
Resurfacing is it's just basically a thick paint-like substance that they squeegee across it. Fills up all the cracks, small cracks, holes, things like that.
and we did that, I think when we were on the council.
on city council, so
Yeah.
it was 24 years ago.
That's why this needs to be done, it's been so long, and if we don't do something, it's gonna continue to get, with the freezing and thawing, these cracks
Yeah.
are gonna get worse.
Yeah,
The only thing I'll throw out is if we do get to the point that we're sending that out to bid, the city does have very strict policies and procedures we'll have to go through.
yeah.
And we did it with the pool too, you know, they work with us, but when the city sends it out to bid,
Yeah.
we
for
keep
competition,
the
you mean,
auditors,
that
yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I just talked to this gentleman, I just want just a ballpark figure, I mean, is it, I didn't know if it's gonna be, $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever, I just wanna get a ballpark, figure what it would probably run, somewhere in that.
Just
I
kind
think
of
it was around
interject,
24 years ago, so hey.
was it 20?
been that long.
I mean, 15, 20 something.
Yeah,
Kind of interject a little bit here. Rod mentioned that, in Mike's, report for this week, he says as spring approaches, we'll be finishing some of the minor repairs at the tennis courts. that were initiated last fall and ceased before completion due to weather.
Great.
I think Mike's, attitude is that just to get by on these tennis courts as they,
Yeah,
as they are now, you know,
Yeah.
not to do a rebuild or anything like that, or,
That's good news. I thought it was worse than that, so.
yeah.
we need,
One of the areas that he did mention was, we have, if you look at this, let me see if it's north, it would be here, we had the trees on the road. There was encroaching on this, so he mentioned that we're gonna have to do something with those groups as they continue to come into the.
Oh, where the kids.
That was another part that he said too, is there was some money we were looking at for tree cleanup and stuff that is on the way of the dodo for currently.
boy, that'd be a big deal, to take that tree out of there. Does everybody know what tree that is?
Mhm.
Big tree on the corner, yeah. Our balls always go underneath it, but anyway. So, we talked about a couple other things. Doug Brown Field, the school said no. Rocky Fork, Eagles Nest, no. And then, yeah, okay, pickleball courts at the high school. So this is kind of where we are. We're meeting about once a month, and we have a couple pickleball players, a couple tennis players. Lindsay, coach for the high school girls, is on that group.
Mhm.
These two guys for the park board. Dave is kept informed because he has lots of good ideas, and a few maybe not as good. No, I don't know. So,
So mark off C. Yeah.
So, I guess if anybody has questions, or you wanna give us input, that would be
Was
wonderful.
there, Mayor, was there any input about E/F, the airport, basically what you were gonna call Rodeo Park?
Oh, so
No.
no, it would not be on Rodeo Park, it would be on this side.
On the other
Okay.
side.
So Rodeo
East
Park
side.
is still gonna be Rodeo Park for parking, Fourth of July, et cetera. It would be,
Right,
it would be on this
Be
side, more
north
like
of
where
it.
you park that. What we'd have to do is lay out a plan that works with the helicopters, when we have fires and rescue and stuff in, on this side.
oh,
of
you're
the-
talking about the other side.
Yeah.
Oh,
The east side of the.
that's
of-
inside of the
east side
airport
of the
fence
airport.
right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Inside the fence.
Any other questions from the board or from the public?
There was one small idea floated today, although I would say it's 3 hops away,
Okay.
about a potential land swap whereby the city may end up with that piece that's north of the runway, but there's 3 hoops that, in other words, suddenly we'd have that property, but that's 3 hoops away from now.
Who has to come up with the money for that?
Well, that's a land swap, so it's just council deciding that they want to do that.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
It's, like I said, it was a first rough float
Is
of
that,
an idea
is
about,
that
hey,
O'Neill's? You
pardon?
talking about O'Neill's on the east side?
Yeah. The property around that.
And it wouldn't be spoken for
So
for
it's
any
a
other
second.
use?
Well, we did have another use in mind.
Oh.
That's why
Oh.
I would put it further down the list.
La, la, la.
Because, well,
Yeah.
because that's a potential that we can use for workforce housing up there
Oh,
to do. But ultimately, it's gonna be what council says, we wanna do this or we wanna do that. So
How could you
anything that's
use
the
it for
land,
workforce housing?
put it out for an RFP and say, come
No, I
in like
mean-
section 42. Oh, no, not that, the one that we're talking about trading for that one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Gravel.
All right, any other questions?
I do have a comment.
Okay, Maxwell?
Hey, hi, my name's Max. I'm concerned that if option C were pursued, that it would be another thing that kind of undermines the flow of the current disc golf course that's there. So that is something like, I think to consider, because there has been a trend, like the soccer field is built up there. There's all of the softball and baseball amenities being added, and that does kind of undermine the flow of the course. I'm sure there is possibly a way to incorporate both. Ideally, that would be awesome, to have like a multi-use kind of park. But I think that should be considered if, option C in particular is pursued any further.
Okay.
Thanks, Max.
Good point.
Max, what's your last name?
Maynard.
Maynard, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions, or concerns? If not, Barb, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Yeah,
Thank you.
see you next week.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good job.
all right, we are gonna move on, and Max, I don't know if,
I,
go ahead, Ann.
Judith is here to to talk about the pool, she's not on the agenda, isn't she allowed to talk under citizen comments?
Well, we've already gone by citizen comments.
Oh, I missed my chance.
There should be one at the bottom, I thought.
You didn't mention it.
That's
It's like-
been a widow,
Did
that
I
doesn't
miss
really
that?
She
happen.
said, anybody in the audience have a comment?
Oh, okay. I probably skipped over citizen comments, did I? Is that on here? Yep, I did.
The roll call.
I would give her 3 minutes
Okay,
like we're
you can
supposed
have-
to and let her
you can have
go.
time.
Okay,
Go
do you
ahead.
want me to stand up or?
No, you can do it, however you're comfortable.
I was on, the very small committee that raised over $1 million for the pool. And we're just very concerned that there was no public board that oversaw the pool, but I understand you do now. So the pool is on. And the big concern I think we have is that you've got to start recruiting lifeguards today.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to get an update, and of course, Mike's not here, but, the constraint on the pool is always the lifeguards.
Yep.
And so, we should ask him where he is on recruiting lifeguards.
I've had that conversation with Mike, actually, yesterday.
And,
I know we got an update from him,
Yeah,
because he had a pool meeting in the last, but that's not part of this update.
Aubrey Willis and I are beginning presentation, or whatever, preparations for the pool season, right now.
Is it up there? Oh, it's farther up.
No, you're right there, come down a little.
Right there, stop.
It's like the 5th bullet. Aubrey, Willie, and I are beginning preparations for the 20, it's at the bottom of your section.
2025 pool season.
Oh.
Aubrey has reached out to last year's
Yep.
personnel. You're all meeting this morning, that was today, this morning, to discuss.
Were you part of that or no?
no, what meeting was this then? It wasn't,
It
it was a subcommittee of this?
well, it was a
No.
staff.
Public
It was a
Works.
staff meeting.
Yeah.
Let me read it to you, I've got it right in front of me here. Aubrey, Willie, and I are beginning preparations for the 2025 pool season. Aubrey has reached out to last year's personnel to gauge return interest. We were all meeting this morning to discuss scheduled lessons, hiring, training, and a punch list of items to complete prior to opening. Once we have a draft of the schedule, lessons, training, and punch list, I will share them all with you. So,
Who's you?
the board,
So-
this was
And
a,
who's Aubrey? Is
I,
she
I think Aubrey
She's
was
the
the.
manager?
Manager of the pool staff.
manager, I
So
think.
she's gonna be coming back?
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Judith, it was my understanding that how the Parks Board fits into this is, it's still a Public Works-driven
Right.
responsibility. However, it is considered a park, and so we will be involved in discussions that have to do with some budgeting. We'll have some, however, that's not our budget, but we have some discussions around, policy and procedures, but it doesn't start here. Like, we're not having monthly meetings about the pool.
I don't know if you know the history of the pool, but it was neglected for years.
Yeah.
And now we have a new director of public works, so our concern is, for all the people that gave us all that money to expand what was originally a smaller footprint for the pool, that we continue to pay attention to it. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
different
I haven't-
public works, but it would be
Oh.
nice to have this committee too,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
have some oversight or
And I think that's what
reporting.
this was, is just an update of, hey, here's where we are. That's-
Yeah.
Mike's
That's just part of the
been really
reorg.
good.
Yeah, he, you know, I think Beth really summed it really well. We're an advisory committee that,
Mhm.
you know, as that, we will have some oversight in terms of making recommendations and that type of thing. And, we'll be working closely with Mike on this.
Okay, and that meeting he had would not be open to the public, that would just be
That was just kind of a staff
his
meeting.
staff meeting?
Yep.
And the report from that comes here then?
Well, he just kind of gave us a
He just
report.
gave you one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he just gave us
when-
an update on,
Okay.
because I asked him the other day where we were on the pool.
Yeah.
And he and I had a discussion about it, and it was from a concern from another, it was a concern brought to me by another pool advocate about really the same concerns you had.
Mhm.
So I had a discussion with Mike on the phone yesterday, I believe. And, you put that together as a
Okay.
response.
Just so, you know, we're just aware of the history of the pool was, no one was paying any attention
Yeah.
to it, and it's that we were 3 years without a pool.
Yeah.
So, and we raised a lot of money and raised a lot of awareness when we did that.
Okay, very good.
So that was nice.
So far, he has seemed like an excellent steward for the city
Yep.
for upkeep of the pool.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the communications here and everything else.
Right.
And though, I'm sure there'll also be an update as this develops, it'll also come up to council and to public land use too. So there's 2 or 3 different venues that come and voice concerns or questions.
Okay, that was my concern.
All right.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Email regarding tomorrow morning about bridge. Oh, okay.
Okay, let's move
We
on.
interface in a lot of different
Let's go ahead and
ways.
move on. We have, the next item we have is, disc golf course. So Max, are you here? for this?
Actually, Tom is.
Tom is online.
Tom,
Presentation.
online here?
Tom, do you have a presentation to give, sir?
I do. Thank you.
Let me make you a
Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah, oh, actually, you're in a different location, so it won't matter. Yeah, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off my video just so reduce the bandwidth here. Oh. Perhaps not. Okay, so first off, thank you for allowing us to give a quick update on the status of disc golf here in Red Lodge. I'm sorry I'm not there tonight, wish I could have been, but I'm here virtually along with Melissa Griffith, who also represents the organization, as well as Max Maynard, who's in the audience, and possibly some others. Just want to go through quickly this presentation. It's kind of built in a story map. So at the end of the presentation, there will be a QR code. If I go over things too quickly, you can scan the QR code and review this for yourself. But I'll start off just by saying that nationally, it's hard to dispute that disc golf is probably one of the fastest growing sports today. This map shows the current status. It's supposed to be illustrating the growth in there, but from 2015 to 2024, there's been thousands of courses added throughout the United States. And where we sit today is we've got over 16,000 courses developed national or worldwide, with an average of about 3 or more courses installed per day in 2024. What I think is really unique about the sport is that 90% of the disc golf courses are free, which allows a lot of people from very different economic sectors to get involved with the sport. It's very accessible. And another thing that's really interesting is that the majority of courses that exist in the United States today are located in our public park system, which you help to manage. Again, highlighting some of the activity and participation throughout the nation. You're going to hear me refer to this application called UDisc. UDisc is a phone app that is used by the majority of disc golf players. It helps identify where those courses are, in addition to tracking their scores along the way. And so a lot of the statistics we get for the sport come from UDisc. So 1.26 million players use the app, which tracked over 20 million rounds played. 33 million hours were spent on disc golf courses throughout the nation. And then here's the startling fact, is that it's getting people out and they're moving. 81 billion steps taken while playing. That's thousands of miles that people are walking just to play the sport. Moving on to some of the tourism, it's amazing how many people come from long distances to play this course, myself included. I pull up this app, I look for locations that have a disc course, and we always make it a point to go and visit those communities and enjoy the courses they offer. 53% plan to take a course or a golf trip in 2025. again, it's affordable, it's accessible, it promotes health and well-being, serves a whole variety of folks in the community, ranging from young to old. And really, it stimulates the local economy. You wouldn't think that, but this picture on the right illustrates, I mean, you can play this golf, you play the sport with 1 or 2 discs, which average maybe about $12 per disc, or a lot of people take this to the extreme, and the packs that those two folks are carrying, that's about $700 worth of gear that they purchased just to play the sport. So some people take it very seriously. Other people can enter at a very low cost. Here in Red Lodge, we have 2 existing courses. We have the Shaft located in Coal Miners Park, which is a 12-hole course. And then just recently, Red Lodge Mountain developed a 18-hole mountain course, which has received a high degree of praise. And we are in discussion with some other folks for additional courses in the community. Myself, Melissa, Max, who's in the audience, and possibly some others have formed this Red Lodge Disc Golf group to help promote the sport in the area. We meet monthly. We're pursuing our 501c3 status, and we're trying to coordinate with as many people as we can at this time, including the chamber, for consistent branding and side events such as our hosted indoor putting league, which we held this summer or this winter, which was of great success. To quickly go over the history of the course, you know, this course has been around a long time, ever since I got here. In 1998, the original nine-hole course was constructed in Coal Miners Park. Unfortunately, that got demolished with the construction of the new high school. So it sat vacant without a course for a while. In 2012, we rebuilt the course, which kind of moved it northward, mostly on the coal slag. And that's where it was given its current name, the Shaft. Over the years, we made some modifications to the course to address some erosion concerns and accommodate the new soccer field. And now we've got the new Red Lodge Mountain 18-hole course. So again, to summarize, disc golf has been around here for several decades now, and I hope it's here to stay. So moving on to the Shaft at Coal Miners Park. You know, again, this is a 12-hole course, which was designed to accommodate mostly beginner and intermediate play. And it's kind of weaved around the whole park, around existing facilities, the ball fields, the soccer fields, just trying to make use of any kind of dead space. I will note that we do have this area that was mentioned earlier, where the proposed pickleball courts may go. There is an existing hole there, and we're hoping to even increase some of the disc golf usage in that area alone. So I just want to highlight that. But again, we generally can work around most facilities. We consider ourselves a compatible sport, and
just sustainability.
Yeah, the sustainability of the course, I think, is an important thing. Now, what do people think about the course? It's interesting, again, going back to the UDisc app, you know, people are able to rate the course. So over this box on the left-hand side, while it receives a very high score in scenery and views, some of the other things are not so well received. The amenities, signage, key areas, all scored pretty low, 3.5 out of 5. Which, you know, we would like to see improved as we move forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and she's going to talk a little bit about a little bit more about the usage statistics, and then a survey that we recently did.
Change things here just a little bit. Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So 2 things. The UDisc app allows us to go ahead and obviously track users and then pull data out of that. So the first graph that you're looking at there just reflects play over the last 2 years, so 2023 and 2024. The important number to me is the amount of hours that have been spent in recreation there, and then the number of unique players. So why that matters is if Tom and I play, Max plays, we play several times a week, it's not counting that amount of play. So it's 201 unique people who have come in and tracked their use of the course. And through a survey that we did, we have learned that only 30% of the users actually track. So if you do that math fairly quickly, we're seeing way more users than 201 unique players over the course of that time, because only 30% of them are actually recording their use. And I think it's important to kind of note, while most of our users are coming from Montana and from town, we talk to people and they'll tell you that they're actually playing weekly or several times a week at the course. You're seeing 18 states represented there, and the number of people traveling from over 100 miles to play is significant. So the shaft itself is seeing a fair amount of usage as we just look at, you know, those statistics up above. The other thing, so this survey that we completed, we wanted to understand who's playing the course, what their thoughts about the course design and layout were, what improvements that they wanted. So I wrote the survey using Likert scales to understand, you know, what do they think is important versus what do they think is not important on a scale of 1 to 5. So once we get through the demographics questions, which are kind of pretty basic, how long have you been playing? How old are you? What zip codes are you coming in from? Those types of things. Then it's all based on, do you feel it's important? Do you think the course is appropriate the way it is? Would you think that for example, bathrooms are important? And people ranked those on agree, strongly agree, disagree, so on and so forth. So the key findings from the survey are they would like, all the users agreed on a scale of 1 to 5 that they would like to expand the course to 18 holes, standardize and improve all of the tee boxes. And by improve, we've kind of talked about what that means, but basically right now they're gravel. And so that ends up kicking out and makes an unstable throwing surface. Standardizing the baskets or targets. Right now we use a blend of targets, and so we can talk a little bit about that. And then improving signage, not just from that core sign there at the front, but the introductory, which is an old sign from time past, but then also adding signage to the tee boxes. And so the other things that came out as important when we talked about amenities were adding a bike rack. I know Max himself rides his bike down there regularly. I ride my bike down. But there's nowhere to actually park a bike safely. And then access to water and a bathroom, some more waste baskets, dog waste stations, and then someplace to put some recycling. So those are kind of the highlights that came out of the nice to haves. We had a lot of list of other options, and these are the priority things that were highlighted. So here you can see tee box number 1. The gravel's been kicked out of tee box number 1, kind of off on the side. And there's a little bit of if you throw strongly and you have a strong run up, you can actually fall off the front of the box. And so creating a new solid surface for that tee pad is really important, whether it's pavers or some other movable object, but something that makes it more stable and safe to play on. And then the basket that you can see there in the middle just reflects the older high school made baskets. And so to get them closer to the standard baskets that are played on elsewhere, we need to add about 15 sets of chains to that. And so we work with a local, probably with the welding shop there in town, to rectify those and not buy new baskets for the ones that exist, but rework those and have them be standardized. And then there's a sign here that's an example of personal travel. Went over the holidays when there was no snow in December to go play around a disc golf in a place that probably it's actually the top ranked course in the state of Montana. And they have important signage there that helps us do things like reduce user conflict, explain where out of bounds on a throw is, what's the length of the throw. And then as we move forward looking for funding, this is a really important way for us to actually add in thank you to sponsors. So the reason for signage is not just wayfinding, but also helping us communicate with the users. So our goals, based on kind of timelines, would be to get approval from the city, and the Parks Board inherently to begin this investigation work of adding these additional holes in, work on the design. And then we need funding from the Parks Board, sponsorships, grants. I've worked with some other organizations and talked about having, heads in beds through TBID is a good opportunity for grants, but there are also potential grants out there through professional organizations for disc golf. So there's a lot of opportunities there, but we need to kind of build in order to get there. We would need to organize the labor. We have a strong group of volunteers who have all indicated they're willing to support, but it may also take some help from Public Works and contractors. And then we need to begin the work and then get ready to go play. And we can play now, but there are things that we can do to kind of help move that forward. So some of the estimated costs that we're looking at, we need 7 new baskets to achieve the goal at a cost of $425 a basket. If we purchase more baskets, we get discounts, so there's an opportunity there. We've already received bids for how much we're looking at for doing the Red Lodge High School baskets, the rework on those, the tee boxes, looking at a model with pavers, leveling and sand, and then building up the box around the outside leaves us about $1,000, $1,200. That's actually should be $1,800 if we're going to 18 holes. And then the signage for 18 at about $75 a sign. The amenities brings in an interesting question. If the organization works hard and works with somebody on, say, porta potties for access. I know during certain times of the year, the softball field is open, but, and there's water down there. So we just need to think about, benches are really important. People like to sit down. It also, people walk and use the park for other things. So the disc golf amenities are not just things that the disc golfers are going to use. They're things that everybody who visits the park is going to use. And it just improves the overall usage of the park. But long and short here is it's probably a $7,000 to $10,000 project to rework it in a way that makes it substantially more user-friendly and increases those UDisc ratings for the people coming from out of town, and probably increases it's definitely going to increase traffic. People will come to play Red Lodge Mountain and then come play in town, or vice versa. We'll see overnight stayers because of that increased usage. And the long and short is basically that this is a shovel-ready project. We're ready to go to work. We can use a little bit of money to get started now once we have permission, and then scale it over the course of the next year and a half until we get where we are. The one thing, and I think you heard Max say this, but those of us that play and play regularly will staunchly defend that space. And it's a community park, and we want to be good neighbors. I had a conversation this week with somebody from the soccer board who's very interested in how do we work together to make sure that both of us have access and that we're not interrupting their play and vice versa. And so I think a lot of this just comes down to communication and conversations and figuring out how we play well together. And it's doable. And all the courses that I've played, they're all multi-use spaces. So that's what we need to work on. If you have questions, we're obviously happy to answer those, but if you want to be able to digest some of this information, if you scan that QR code, you can pull the story map up later or at any time and kind of go back and review what we've highlighted. Thoughts?
Okay, any questions from the board? Melissa, I have a question on your budget sheet here. So my understanding is that the total cost on each item, that's really material costs, not including labor. Labor would be provided by volunteers.
Correct. And I don't want to be naive. The whole digging to be done correct might require the rental of equipment, and it might be nice to have some help in different places installing signposts and those kinds of things. But overall, it's volunteer labor. We have people who have agreed to come support. So we do not have labor costs built in any way right now.
So do you have I'm new here, so I'm a little bit ignorant, maybe more than a little bit ignorant. But do you have an active organization, association that's working on this?
It's been newly, I would say, reinvigorated. I would say that disc golf, and I'm relatively new myself and new to the sport, but disc golf has sort of always been a little bit on the side. And a lot of the other projects they look bigger. It seems like you have a more vocal supporter, a more vocal group of folks doing it. But I can tell you over the last nearly 3 decades since that first course was put in, there has been a steady group of people who consistently show up and play the game. When you look at the age numbers, the age ranges that showed up in our survey, we see people into their 70s playing. And those folks have been involved in the game for 3, 4, 5 decades. So there's a group of people there, getting back to your question, the group that has been working on this project. A couple of them are probably in the room there tonight, and they just started by like trying to rebuild one of the tee boxes on their own. And through conversation last summer, we realized really we need to get a little bit more organization, figure out a plan. It works to do it one thing at a time, but if we're going to make it sustainable and have it be something that grows into the future, we need to form a nonprofit, put some effort into it, have some regular meetings, and make a plan. So the putting league that we referenced earlier, our average night of people playing disc golf in the summer, in the winter time, in an enclosed space, we had about 15 people every night show up while we did that this winter. So, and the group coming to the meetings and helping support the planning is roughly 6 to 10, but that gives you an idea of how many people are willing to show up. And those are not the people that I haven't just called yet and phoned a friend of the people who I know will show up for the work part. So.
Did you get Melissa's last name for the record?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
And Max being there in the room can obviously speak to a lot of this too. Tom and I are not the ones with all the knowledge for sure.
Max, you have any additional comments?
Yeah, as Tom mentioned earlier, Red Lodge Disc Golf is kind of like the more or less official organization that's trying to move this forward. And as they've also stated, they're trying to form a nonprofit under that moniker and get all that stuff done. So yeah, we're just trying to go through official means to, as you said, have a sustainable plan to make the park better. And again, a big part of it was too, like, obviously improving the disc golf sort of sport within the park, but also making the amenities and other aspects of the park better for everybody for multi-use purposes.
Are you gonna get involved with the fund run to raise funds?
Well, most likely I'm going to be on the community foundation board come late March, so I think that's going to definitely be.
Well, I mean, you have to separately.
Yes, that is
Okay.
a separate entity,
All right.
but yes.
Tom and Melissa, I have a question. Where are you proposing your other 6 holes?
There's a fair bit of dialogue around where they'll go if you ask. So we've got a user group who strongly thinks that they all have an opinion about where. The best thing for us to do would be to come in, given the permission to investigate it and kind of lay out what we think. But we've worked with there are some disc golf professionals actually who have given us some input on what makes sense. And then people who are on the ground looking at this going, this makes sense or it doesn't. So we have some ideas, but there's more ideas than we have a need for. So it's a matter of whittling it down and figuring out what makes the most sense.
Yeah, the only thing I will say is, I've been involved with this course ever since its origin, and, I know the concerns around erosion control and slopes and just the underlying, material that exists with the dump and the coal slag and everything. So that's definitely being taken into consideration as we move forward with the design. But as Melissa said, we're happy to show you what we have kind of planned. We're still working through it ourselves, but we would foresee bringing a plan to the Parks Board at some near point in the future and getting kind of that approval process going.
Okay,
Mayor,
I have a question. I'm trying to pick my words carefully because it's not meant to be antagonistic. But when you had mentioned that came up the first time when that piece of land came up. And there was a big, there's a hole there and how did that happen? So the existing course that's there, I know the organization doesn't exist yet, so we probably don't already have an MOU in place. But as holes have been added, how much of this process, I don't remember any of this discussion, like when I was on council and I was involved in Parks Board and stuff, how much of this is just weekend warriors going out and saying, hey, I'm gonna feel this is a good place for a tee box or a good place for a catcher, versus how much of this has been done with city council's blessing and Parks Board involvement prior to this point?
It's my belief that we've always been upfront with any design changes. Brian Romaine has sat on the Parks Board. He has communicated his intents to make modifications to the course, pulling baskets out because of erosion control. I've always addressed the Parks Board. I think I was on the Parks Board at that time. I think we've worked lockstep with the Parks Board on any changes that we've made. Beth, you've been around a long time, and maybe you can comment on that as well.
yeah, I can't, I mean, not historically, I know that, you know, obviously most of my interface was, trying to help facilitate a flat space that could be used for the fields up on top, and you guys were great at accommodating going around the perimeter, because, you know, we have such limited flat spaces in our parks, that, you know, my experience was just in that relocation that probably happened 3 years ago. Before that, I don't know. I know that the organization is listed on the coal miners MOU, and it was just called Red Lodge Disc Golf, but not in the terminology that you know, they haven't, in my opinion, they haven't had this, you know, cementation of an organization.
not a formal organization. so to
Yeah.
speak.
However, Brian was on the board for a long time, and I know that Brian was one of the lead volunteers for it. And I mean, the MOU was loose with all of us at times up there. I mean, you know, I think this is a great step to have you putting something together formally. I do think it's hard to crisscross flat areas that could maybe accommodate other activities, and then if you had perimeter again. So, you know, I'm sure that some of that conversation where, I don't know what number that hole is, Max, at the bottom, where the new trees got planted?
Oh, yeah, that would be.
9. I mean, it would be a shame to not continue expanding your course, but if that can happen with some discussion about how that area might be used for these tennis pickleball options,
Mhm.
then, you know, I think we've got all the right players to do that.
Try to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some stuff to the north, just as a mental note, Tom, there's some stuff to the north, I think that's, I don't know, Max would go out and look at it. There's a trail and an easement that the city has over above the, sanctuary over there. The second question I was gonna ask is, I saw amenities and porta potties. Did we not have porta potties up there last summer, and do we need to have more? Cause that's an easy fix, but.
And the nice thing is, some of this is pretty low hanging fruit. Things like a bike rack, and some of that's pretty easy, so.
Yeah.
So did we have them up there last year, or no? Is that a low-hanging
No.
fruit to add?
It's a low
Yeah, we
hanging
had-
fruit. to
Yeah,
add.
but
Was there
There was a
one?
porta potty,
I think there was one.
Public Works put one up on top that was used by soccer and anybody that used the park. And then the bathrooms, I realize, are open, but only during summer. And actually, they're locked a lot by softball because they get abused.
yeah.
Yep.
However, those are small fixes. The dog stations are great, however, I mean, it's a good audience. It is a park where dogs are supposed to be on leashes. And so I know that if you're talking to people from soccer club, how important that is, you know, that it's such a great location for ultimate frisbee with your, collies and Labradors, but they're not supposed to be free running.
Yeah.
But
There's some restrictions in there too, if my understanding is if you, with the MOUs you guys have in, if, like, you have to stop gameplay if somebody shows up with a dog not on leash,
yeah.
for liability reasons.
Yeah. But I think this is great discussion and, look forward to seeing what you propose.
Yeah.
Right, well, why don't we wrap up?
It's great,
Dan?
nice presentation.
Max, Tom, Melissa, anytime you wanna show me around up there, I'd love to go.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure.
And God sent me too, so maybe you can make a little group and y'all can show us around.
We have a loose plan, of when we kind of settle on a couple of ideas of maybe where our new baskets go, / changing some of the existing holes. For example, there's been some talk about, there's hole 2, which is hugging right on the soccer field, and we just have concerns. Anytime there's an active game going there, we usually skip it, because we don't wanna,
No.
hit people. So we have between, several of us, portable baskets that can be placed. We were thinking a nice way to be able to test out the viability of a hole, assuming it's all, like, it's not, contributing to erosion or any of that stuff, would be to set them up temporarily and try it out and see how it flows, and stuff like that.
Well, just let us know, I think Roger, anybody.
So definitely,
Let us know when we're
I got
done.
your number, I'll hit you up.
Yeah, and as, you know, coal miners is kind of, I'm supposed to be the ambassador, so I'd love to go too.
Hey.
We just gotta make
No,
sure we
that's
don't have a
great.
quorum.
Tom, would you email me, or Melissa, probably Tom, you might have my email still, that presentation? I mean, I did get it on my phone, but it doesn't seem like I can download it somewhere here.
Oh, I just had the link and I was able to see it already.
But I serve as the secretary now, so I want to be able to reference your presentation.
I can send out the actual URL to everyone on the Parks Board.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you all.
You bet, thank you.
Thank you, it's been
All right.
Graham@gmail.com.
Thank you,
Yeah,
great,
Graham.
good presentation, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you just didn't have a download option.
So many people.
Okay. We're gonna move on to the next item, which is the Whistler Observatory, and, let's keep this one fairly quick, because we're getting close to 7 o'clock. But we've had 2 really good presentations, that they take time.
Yeah.
Back on February 13th, let me backtrack just a little bit. I think everybody on the board remembers that we made an offer as a board to facilitate a meeting between the Whistler Observatory people and basically the county commissioners and the fairground folks about
And the city.
in the city,
Yeah.
about the issue up at the observatory where the lights at the fairground seem to be hindering kind of the enjoyment of the operations of the observatory. And it was difficult to get everybody together to try to have this meeting, but we finally, after a couple false starts, had a meeting on February 13th. In addition to myself being there, we had Chelsea Tupin, who was our council representative at the time. And in fact, I guess actually, you were already,
I couldn't come.
you couldn't
so
come,
maybe
so
Chelsea- I don't
she
know.
was already involved in it, so she volunteered to
Okay,
come
gotcha.
to it. And we had Teresa Whistler there and Brad Caton from the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation. And the reason he was there, I guess originally, and maybe still the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation acts as a financial agent in some respects to the Whistler Observatory. And of course, Bill Bullock, who is the county commissioner representing Red Lodge, was there. The idea was to try to come up with an effective idea or a reasonable idea to mitigate the situation up there. And the goals were two goals that had equal weight. First goal was not to harm or not to invalidate the safety and security issues that the fairground facilities have up there. And also to ensure that we would have adequate dark nights for the operations of the Whistler Observatory. The idea was that maybe we could come together to have a solution that wouldn't cost the county any funds, any money to implement it. We brought that forward, and just to cut to the chase, Commissioner Bill Bullock said that in his opinion, and he's had talks with his fellow commissioners, that the county commissioners didn't feel any responsibility to try to be a partner in trying to solve this problem. So we had a long discussion, and we didn't get past that point, to be honest with you, and so I adjourned the meeting, and we all went our separate ways. So to sum it up, if we're gonna look at trying to mitigate the issue with the lights up there, we're gonna have to come with some other means of mitigating the problems with the light outside of involvement by the county or the county fairgrounds.
Got an idea. You go to Home Depot, get yourself a $25 automatic light. Turns on when it's like a motion sensor. I mean, I'll pay for it. The county doesn't have to spend a dime.
No,
I'm being a little facetious.
they're not interested. I mean, that, you know.
What about the Fair Board? I thought this was,
My understanding is he did take.
He did.
Fair Board.
Yeah. And he was told he was invited to bring members from the county fair board to the meeting. He chose not to do that. Yeah, we tried. Yeah, you sure are.
Okay, I just doesn't, well, you gotta say your name though. Oh, Linda Anderson, okay. And I don't live in the city, but I do live in Remington Ranch, which everybody knows is like that far away from the city.
Mhm.
That south end of Remington Ranch, homeowners have also gone round and round with Mr. Bullock to try to come up with something that would be a nice solution to the constant lights. The solution that Max mentioned was mentioned, and also someone mentioned, to just put a switch.
Mhm.
Or timer. A timer, a switch, something, so that a motion detector, if someone is snooping around the county stuff that's not supposed to be there, you know, the lights come on, all of that, and I don't understand the obstinance there, but maybe I'm just not supposed to.
Well,
I don't know.
Teresa Whistler actually brought in a shield that you can put over the lights that directs the lighting downward rather than, broadcasting it out.
That one too would be
And
very
that's
acceptable to
That's
the
a
neighborhood.
relatively inexpensive fix, but,
They all are.
but there was no interest in.
No, it's just, I don't know what to call it.
Well, I have my opinions, but I'd be speculating, so I'm not going to offer them to you.
Yeah, so I don't know.
And we're recording.
Yeah.
okay, so Mr. Mayor, I would like to say that, the Parks Board recommended that the observatory be installed. It went to city council, it was approved, and it seems like it invalidates the whole use of that observatory if we can't come up with something that is a fix. And, to me, that's all I have to say. I mean, we went through the channels to allow that park to be created, or that, not park, the park was created, that addition to the park. And I'm not aware of legal issues or whether, they should in fact, in the future, pay for a lease with the city because it's a permanent structure and all of that. I'm not getting into those weeds. I'm just saying that if there are fixes to the lights, is there any way that the city can facilitate that?
Well, I think we had,
And that's it, that's it in a nutshell.
I think there was some discussion about that, at one of our previous meetings. And I think there's a problem with reluctance if you're suggesting that the city, fund a fix to the lights that are on the county or county fairgrounds facilities. That's probably an issue that can't, really be explored.
We have from the city, and by say we, I can speak firsthand because I've done it. I've had those conversations. There are the manner in which it came to be with, which I don't want to get into, and there's actually still some outstanding issues, and some stuff in the middle, but when I approached the county, the feedback I got was, we provided this input right up front, and they installed that there, knowing and understanding that we had this facility and that we had these future facilities on the line, and they chose to do that. So we don't feel inclined to come back and retroactively
And I
fix
just
what
don't know.
we told them to do already.
But the lights haven't always been on.
No.
My understanding, and I don't know, I do know that I asked specifically about that, and that was input from the sheriffs, and part of one of the problems is the lights got shot out after the observatory went up. No indication or proof that that's where it was, but I think there's a little bit of a pissing match, for lack of any other way to put it.
I think a
And
pitching match is a very adequate.
And I think when
They're suggesting somebody that went to the observatory shot the lights out.
they're saying that it was in the same time frame, that they
Yeah.
called them and said, you shut off the lights, and they said no, and then they got shot out.
Because the lights weren't there to start with.
So, I think when Roger, and I wasn't
Did you go
there,
shoot the lights out, Rod?
Yeah.
but I think when Roger said he
So-
called it, I think it was a recognition of this is going to be a constructive conversation and joint persuasion, and he recognized that particular situation was not getting any closer to the goal.
No.
And we do not have the ability to tell the county what they can and cannot do. So our field there
So.
is just simply that of what we have in persuasion.
But they're within the city limits.
They are not within the city.
No, they're
limits.
not.
So the whole fairgrounds is not in the city.
Correct. It was de-annexed several years ago because the city has a no hoofed animals, which kind of gets in the way with the county fair and forest. So when this process was started, they actually came forth and said, this is not where we'd recommend, because here's what our plans are. They already had them engineered, they already had them drawn up. They said, here's what's going in there.
But for the new facility, these are existing facilities and the lights were not on.
And I don't
Until
think
recently.
but Mary Dale, we can't answer to that. We weren't there. That wasn't brought. The only thing that we were involved with from the park board was when Northwestern was gonna change the
The poles.
poles, the electric,
Mhm. Right, the height.
poles, and we were somewhat involved in that discussion.
That was before the observatory.
I don't think we can, any of us,
No, it was
specifically in
directly
here.
tied to the observatory.
Well, no, there was a pad there, but there was no building yet, I don't believe.
Correct.
Because, yeah, I remember that discussion. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
This needs to be a conversation that happens with a common goal in mind, not you're gonna do this because we're gonna tell you to, because and now we've gotta simmer
Well,
that down a little bit.
I think the observatory is exploring other options for blocking the light when they're using the building on Friday nights particularly, so, I think they're moving on.
It might be a situation where, it's gonna be a situation that's gonna exist, and the observatory's gonna have to learn how to work around it.
Well, that's what I say, they are exploring other
Yeah.
ways to block the light
Yep.
when they're using the building.
I would encourage that they need to make sure that they work with the Parks Board and with the city before they do that.
Okay,
Um,
I won't.
There's some other issues with that MOU that are gonna get revisited, because it didn't go
Probably.
the way it was
Yep.
discussed, but there's also, you don't jump into the middle of a fire and say, let's fix this. So,
That's an MOU that definitely needs some work on it. Next.
If I may make a non-flippant comment, I want to point out that, in the grand scheme of things, it's a light, but I think it's also, it's not just affecting the operation of the Whistler Observatory, it is, you know, kind of, we're trying to go for, we want to be a dark sky community, and we're, you know, well, I mean, it's one of the few places you can live in a settlement and be able to see the Milky Way, and I think it's just kind of, it would be, if we were able to solve this light bulb issue, it would be more than just the Whistler Observatory that would benefit. It would be the community, it would be Remington Ranch, it'd be, anybody who goes out there to take a walk. So it's definitely, yeah, and it'd be in better interest of everybody, which I think everybody agrees.
It's a good
Yeah.
point, I hope it's a bigger picture than.
Almost everybody agrees.
Right.
There was- Almost.
Well, and that was
Well,
one of the
and
things that was the
and Dark
problem,
Skies
is they went
doesn't go to the
county.
county. It's not a county-wide,
Yeah, and yet they
was a
tried to
city.
enforce that. It had direct impacts to agriculture, night feeding, there was all sorts of things, and they went in, pounding their fist and said, you must do this, and the county said, no, we don't.
And that goes back to, and I think, you know, we really need to move on because
Yeah.
we're at 10 minutes to 7. That goes back to, the root of the problem is just a lot of hard feelings from the very start. Either things weren't done correctly or they were done correctly. People didn't agree the way the system worked and the process it went through, but it just comes down to a lot of hard feelings. So let's move on. Okay. All righty, we're at
Pride Park.
Pride Park. Okay. I had, a phone call from Tupin. Chelsea, I was gonna say Celeste, that wasn't right, from Chelsea Tupin, that the, I guess the land use is a subcommittee of the city council,
Yep, it's a standing committee on.
standing committee, and, they had an issue brought to them that they were concerned about, I guess, and that was the use of Pride Park, particularly during the summertime when there's a lot of activities and things going on downtown, the use of Pride Park, for being reserved for retail and commercial purposes. And I don't know if anybody has noticed that this summer. I noticed it one time, I think it was during maybe the
Car show.
the car show.
And then so,
Also, I'm on the Pride Park committee.
You are.
I'm in the garden club. There was a retail outdoor sale,
Yep.
you know, of sorts, and I think it was from the Mountain Shop, which is
Yep.
right next door, you know, that's great. But I think it resulted in, apparently it was a really successful sale, or very busy, because there was a lot of tramping around and, I don't know, maybe some debris left, a lot of tramping around and sitting where people shouldn't have been tramping and sitting, and it washed a lot of,
And so the approval has been modified that they're not allowed to block or interfere with the seating. But kind of the question is, that park is kind of a unique park that provides a unique service downtown. And council can put in place whatever regulations they want to. It can't be rented out to what types of things it could, because people were talking about, you know, the band goes and plays down there, or what if artists, we have the art walk down there. So from a staff position, from an administration standpoint, we just want to know what are the rules and guidelines that we can apply evenly and regularly. And so reaching out to them, and I'm glad to hear that reaching out to parks too. What is it that, you know, is that park just off the table? It can't be rented out. It can be used for things that don't require renting, or, for the current time, just by way of information, we do require cleanup. We do require that they not interfere with the seating. And if there's a particular big weekend, like the car show or 4th of July or something, I go in and reserve it as the city, but I can't really do that every week. I'd rather have council say that it's not reservable, but that's a little bit of a preemptive thing that we do from a city standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. I think you explained it really well. And so the question is that an appropriate use of that park? Given the nature of the park, as the mayor said, it's a park that's really designed for passive use. It's very small. It's an attractive little area for downtown that is a little bit of a refuge, an oasis for the visitors of downtown. They kind of congregate there.
Get out
sit
of
in
the sun.
shade, get out of
Yep.
the sun, you know, And, it doesn't, if you look at the reservation policy or the use of city land policy, it doesn't prohibit that type of use at Pride Park. The question is that appropriate use? They'd like to have, I guess, an opinion from our board as to.
I don't
what's
get to
appropriate.
administer my personal opinions. I get to administer what council is put.
Yeah, and so, you know, I mean, there's several options you could look at. You could say, yes, it is, you know, we allow retail sales and commercial, activities in parks and on city property through a reservation process. Or you could say, this park is unique and is not appropriate for that, or you could say, it's allowed so many times a year. I mean.
So
these
who
are
gets
kind-
the permit request?
Well, we had discussion about that too, and in fact, that was.
And by the way, that's been fixed and remedied, because that came up last time. So if you go online, there was a separate page called Reserve a Park, which is not where the land use is.
Yeah.
If you go there, it no longer says most are done by phones, it no longer says Courtney, and it points you to the land use page.
Okay, because it used to go to Courtney.
So, yeah, so we
Okay.
fixed that after this meeting last time. That's
Okay.
one of my status updates that we
Okay.
have.
I think,
So they go, it's a permit that goes into the planning email at.
boy, I tell you what, I was on that today, Dave, and I think it's still kind of a quagmire. It's a little bit of a black hole when you try to figure out how to reserve a park, I think. I think it still needs some more work. It, it's listed under the Community Development Department too.
Which is what
But there really is,
Courtney's predecessor was in,
could be.
and she, yeah.
I think it
Do we
needs to
have
be
community
simplified, it
development
needs to
anymore?
be made,
We do.
it needs to be made much simpler in how to, get online and try to reserve a park. And the application is not writable, you can't write on it. So that's another issue. And then there's no clear
You mean not
instructions on
fillable?
It's a downloadable
You have to-
PDF, but not, okay.
Yeah.
Right, and so, and there's no
Well,
real clear instruction of who you submit it to, where it gets submitted, and who is actually doing making the approval for the, request.
Does it say how far in advance you have to?
Yeah, it does,
Okay.
it does, it says, I think a
Let's do
minimum,
this next month, because we're running out of time, and this sounds really complicated.
oh, this is very complicated.
And the point is, well, what about Lions Club? They're selling things at Lions Club.
Sure.
I mean, so we have to sort of, it's gonna take a while, so let's do
Exactly.
it in a month.
No, I'm not asking for a decision today, I'm
I
just
know,
saying
but
that we should,
we got
be
two or
thinking
three
about
more
this.
things to do, so.
Well, I think what we ought to do for today is to, delay the, priorities that we talked about until next meeting.
Okay.
I'm happy to read the Parks Project and Budget Update if you need that. I think
Sure.
we should table annual park workday for Sarah to be here.
Right. Board meeting date?
Yeah,
Did we take it?
No.
real quick, let's talk about board meeting dates real quickly. I don't think we need to make a decision, but, according to our bylaws, our board is supposed to meet on the third Wednesday of the month. We're meeting on the first Wednesday of the month.
We need to update the.
We got two options. We could say, who cares? We're gonna continue to go as we are. It's probably not a preferable option. The other option would be to change our meetings to the third Wednesday. I think generally the third Wednesday is available, but it isn't next month. I think, planning and zoning, has that.
That's the
that
second
day.
and fourth, so that shouldn't be interfere with the third.
Okay, might take a look at that. And then, the other one would be just to amend our bylaws.
I would make a motion that we amend our bylaws. I mean, this meeting has been the first Wednesday of the month
I think that's a
For-
good route to take.
almost a decade. And we also, don't we need to get in there anyway and change the term limits? Because one of the documents is wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
Is it the bylaws that are wrong or the,
It was the online reference that was wrong.
yeah.
Oh.
We changed it to.
The bylaws and the ordinance are okay, it was a reference. So, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
I might recommend that what you do is set that as a future action item and have somebody completely go through the bylaws and see if there's any other comments or recommendations.
Okay,
I'm the guest here, so that's just a recommendation, right?
you want, would you like to,
okay, I
would you
amend,
like to amend your
I will
motion?
amend my motion that, we appoint somebody to take a stab at redlining,
How about reviewing?
reviewing and recommending changes to the bylaws
Okay,
to include the meeting date. How about that?
okay.
Mary Dale, do you still second that one?
All those in favor?
All right.
I,
You
Aye.
have a volunteer to do that.
I will do it, but I would want, I don't wanna be, you know.
I don't think it's something to do by yourself, so I guess I'm
Exactly.
volunteering it myself.
Okay. Well, and just email everybody your results, and we'll bring it to another meeting. Okay. All right. So we're gonna skip, the priorities,
Right.
move that to the next meeting in April.
What about park addressing? Do you have
Park
anything to report?
addressing.
I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is you guys were gonna develop a list of which parks specifically wanted to get addresses to, and it had to do with,
I think I,
like, is there gonna be one
I
for
think
coal
so.
miners? And then I take that and say, give us addresses.
Okay,
Well, I've done some little bit of looking around in the last month, and, you know, the problem is Lions Club goes from Eighth Street to Fifth Street. So you're gonna have, and then, Rotary, the same thing.
Which goes back to this group, provide a list and where they want the pinpoint to be.
yeah,
And then what I do is I give that to the county and we get it.
And then I've also looked at Google Images. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, and that's not a big priority for most city parks.
oh, we don't need
An
the,
address.
yeah, we don't need the sign, we're not talking about the signage yet, Ann. We're just talking about Tom Cooley's assigning an address, so it actually has a physical address.
But
So
there
if you
there are
have
a lot of them. I mean,
You have a
like,
911 issue?
Dog Park is 78 Rodeo Drive, which does that mean it's on the corner of 78 Rodeo Drive? I mean, I've been looking on the maps, and there are some numbers.
But
Yeah, Tom will fix
if you
that
tell
though.
Google Maps to navigate you to the city pool or to Coal Miners Park, or that's the issue that we've got.
Well, and if you,
Well-
if you
Okay,
have
who
an
has,
accident,
do you
right?
have the current, what list do I use? I'm happy to do
911.
it.
If somebody has a 911 issue, I mean, I.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I'll-
talked about this for 3
I'll
years. We're
get
gonna
you-
do it.
I'll get you a list,
Okay,
okay?
then, all right, so
And if we
Roger,
find out there's something that's not on the list, we'll add it later
Yep.
down the road.
okay,
Yep.
Roger will get me a list and I will
Get that to me and,
get you a pinpoint,
or do
just
you
say
wanna
the
have, do you
center of
wanna
the,
have everybody sign off on what the?
do you care?
you bet.
I mean, honestly, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pick like the center of something at Lions Park and the
Yep.
center of the parking lot at Coal Miners. I mean, I just think we need, yeah, for
Yep.
911
That's all you can
addressing.
do.
The
Right.
big one that kinda came up with the
Then you
question
don't have
was, I said,
multiples.
coal miners, did we
Yeah.
wanna have an east or a west or just one address?
No, I'd say get yourself, get emergency medical to the parking lot, that's all you need.
Yeah,
Yeah. Van
Okay.
Dyke has nothing to.
all right, let's move on.
Okay,
I'm gonna
great.
send you a list. You wanna read, Mike?
Roger, get list. Sure. Because I'm gonna put it in the
Read
minute.
about half of it earlier.
And then the one update, if I may, just so I don't forget, because I'm old. Mary Dale had asked a question on the skate park, which was not included in Mike's update, but we have the sealant. We're basically waiting for weather. When we get good weather, it'll be pressure washed, rolled on, dried, and then it'll be done. So they have the materials in hand to do it. We just, tonight's not gonna be the night.
And tomorrow won't be the day. You-
Tomorrow won't be the day.
Definitely not tomorrow.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Mike, could not make the meeting. We received an $850 tree planting grant for the Arbor Day celebration. That date hasn't been set. We were gonna maybe do it with tree planting, so we'll have to change that. The DNRC, IRA, and PD grants are under a freeze because of federal funds. If funding is released, they will update us on the status of our grant applications. It seems unlikely we will be able to fund the tree removal project this year. We will be able to remove the smaller trees as part of maintenance and may be able to do some replanting. We still plan to have some sort of planting event to celebrate Arbor Day, Earth Day, even if it's a tree, right? Well, we have the $850 grant, so he'll make a recommendation. The landscape architect has presented 2 concept drawings for possible Pride Park renovation of planters, benches, and the slab with lighting and integrated garbage receptacle. Mike will be reaching out to this board and the garden club next week to meet and discuss the drawings. Or at least setting a time next week. Mike is working with the baseball commission, and again, this was reported last month, recommend using some of the Parks Project dollars to help with the batting cage and flagpole improvements. They estimated about $2,000 for that. Mike's working with Lori Elliott, who is refurbishing the benches around town. Those are the ones that have a little plaque on it that says class of 1953 or something. Parks Department will likely assist with some dollars for materials. That's also probably about $2,000.
I thought they got a grant from the community foundation.
I don't know.
No.
I'll skip over the pool. As spring approaches, they will be finishing minor repairs at the tennis courts that were initiated last fall, but ceased due to weather. So I'm assuming that's the poles. Also, this spring, Mike will be meeting with Brian, he said Oswald, I think it's Oswald, the Carbon County Weed Coordinator, to discuss weed mitigation in city parks. That's it.
Very good. Any comments? Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Are you going up to the tree thing in Hamilton?
No, I can't.
Okay.